This episode of our This Week in XR podcast is sponsored by Zapper. Zapper is one of the world's leading XR companies. Over the past 12 years, they've won numerous awards for memorable campaigns. They've democratized AR by making tools and SDKs that anyone can use. And they created ZapBox, the world's most affordable mixed reality headset. Most recently, Zapper worked with Unilever to create an enhanced QR code called Accessible QR, which enables packaged goods to speak to the blind and partially sighted. If you're thinking XR, give the team at Zapper a call or visit zapper.com to see how they can help you on your XR journey. Good morning, everybody. It's Friday, May 17th. Welcome to show 195. It's This Week in XR. We're going old style here with just me and Ted. Good morning.
195. We're getting close to the magic 200 number, which we'll be doing in person at AWE, right?
That's right. We'll be on stage at AWE. I have no idea what we're doing, but it's going to be the last day of AWE, so we know what to talk about. So the question is, how do we handle guests? Or maybe we just make the guest the whole audience. So when we and we'll make the whole thing about the AWE show and the coming year in XR. And it is an interesting moment for XR because it hasn't really fully merged with AR and with wearables, although we're moving in that direction. So I'm excited about that. It's not about displays, right? It's about knowledge of the things around you and what you're doing that's so important to the AI functioning properly. And now that AI is going to have a personality because it was released by ChatGPT, OpenAI, that they have these character voices that will run off of the AI. So it's like the movie Her.
Yeah. Just like, in the only other qualification I could tie to this kind of fervor around technology is in a lot of the heyday of Apple when Steve Jobs was really kind of drumming up everybody, and it was almost this religious experience. The amount of people, that I talked to just on the day that they launched and showed a few little demo clips of this stuff being used, and the fact that it kind of enters into the mainstream media, goes into all the comedy late night shows. This is way, way beyond just a technology effort. This is something that is altering our humanity in a way that I think both excites and terrifies people at the same time. And it becomes a media event. It's fascinating.
I will tell you what's missing that would make it incredible, and maybe this will happen when it's integrated with Siri. It has right now ChatGPT, and I've been very critical, as you know, of their mobile app, which is just terrible. You can't write down what it's saying. It is like ridiculous. It has no memory. It isn't connected to the web version. And so what is it? Why did they
Why is it even there? Yeah.
Because I'll just use my browser to connect to it with, voice turned on.
Yeah.
But if it could do things, if it were connected to Siri and really could do things, I think that would be a game changer.
Yeah. Every time I use Siri, the end of the conversation is, "Yeah, Siri, thanks for nothing." Like, just doesn't really work, right? But every time I use some AI assistant, of which there's 7, I use Claude a lot, the Anthropic one. It's like, oh, this was great. This was actually relevant. Gave me the right piece of information. And there's always that little micro lag and stuff, which makes you realize it's still a machine. But with this 4.0, whatever they're calling it, 4.0,
for optimize,
or optimized little O experience. The latency is down to almost nothing, and they're like really tuning up this kind of like timbre of the voice and personality of the assistant, that it really does start to become this like humanistic experience. And I'm certainly excited and also like really, really like mortified about it at the same time. Very much a Jekyll and Hyde thing. I love it and I hate it all at the same moment. I don't know any other way to express it.
Well, I don't know why this madness happens during an election year, but it's going so fast, Ted.
Yeah, I know.
It is terrifyingly fast. Google also announced Veo, which is their text to video generator, which will compete with Sora. This follows last week's announcement about Voodoo, the text to image generator that Chinese developers had
Hmm.
created.
Yeah. It doesn't. Does it feel to you like Google has been forced into chase mode? That they're not at the front of the heap. Google has been at the front of the heap in this industry. All things search for such a long time that when they have to react like a startup and act in a more aggressive way, they find it really difficult, which may be more ethically proper, and that's great. But I think they don't know how to grapple with what's going on right now
I
because
would
they've never
I
had to
would
do
say two I would say two things. One is the search business, which accounts for 75% of Google's whatever it is,
it. What is it,
$55
like
billion.
$65 billion a
Yeah,
year,
quarterly,
$70 billion a year.
quarterly,
Yeah,
quarterly, Ted.
a
That's
quarter
200 billion a year.
billion a
Well,
year.
well, there's a reason they're worth $2 trillion.
Of course.
However, 75% is search advertising.
Yeah, advertising based. Right, right, right.
So when that goes away, Google will be deeply threatened.
Yeah.
However, they are on the leading edge of what I would call self disruption.
Mm,
And they are connected to the web, and their chatbots or AI programs like Gemini are connected to the web in a way that OpenAI is not.
mhm.
OpenAI, now, on the other hand, Google Gemini is behind, right? They're not introducing these features, but they do, right? So, how far behind Sora are they? A few months?
Yeah,
So I
probably.
don't think it's that far apart, but I think the bigger issue for Google is what is the business? Is it the subscription business? If we all had to pay Google $20 because we had this suite of services, Google's got to replace that revenue. Will the AI get good enough so that I mean they're already taking in hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue, both they and OpenAI and all the crazy other places that I have subscriptions. So people are paying for it, but it's not like mobile yet.
Yeah.
It's got to get to be like mobile if they're going to commoditize the whole racket and get rid of the paid advertising search, which certainly is a dead man walking.
Yeah.
So I would think behind closed doors, they are super focused on it, but I don't think they are holding back. I
Mm.
think they are kind of catching up in certain ways, but they're not that far behind. And they still own this enormous, unprecedented audience of basically everybody that might be threatened by the settlement in the judgment against them in the monopoly practices case.
Yeah, I think those are all the practical things. I just my side of this feels like the narrative is slightly changing. Like the untoppable Google seems like for the
Yeah.
first time there's a narrative that's
Yeah.
presenting itself that maybe there's a little chip in the armor. There's something,
There's an opening. There's an
right?
opening.
Yeah, it's
There's
really
an opening, and I think I could be wrong. We could both be wrong. But I do think it's this idea of this assistant who is really good, who is what Siri was supposed to be.
hmm
An assistant who could say, "Book me a plane ticket." Ah,
hmm
your plane ticket is concerned. Turn
hmm
on this music. Find me this person.
right,
Does Ted Shilowitz have a phone number on the internet?
right, yeah,
So please post this on Twitter. I mean, it is standing in for you.
yeah, exactly, exactly, yeah,
So and the other thing is, the movie Her, he didn't fall in love with her, and still she started to express her love for him by doing things for him. She did things for him that only a lover would do for you, right? She got a book of his, sort of poetry that he was writing in his job, and she got that published for him. I mean, WTF, right? Who didn't want an agent like that?
yeah, exactly, yeah, yeah.
So, other big announcement from Google I/O. I mean, the column was half about Google I/O because they threw up so many things at once. But world painted with data. Okay,
Mhm.
I threw that out
There's
there in
your
2019,
there's your
and they
prediction
are
coming true.
well. Google Maps has, this heads up version where you hold up your phone and it uses computer vision and
Yeah, the lens stuff.
location.
Yeah,
Yeah. And so now they're just instead of arrows pointing where you're going to go, since they know where you are so precisely and they know your orientation, right? What you're looking at, they can then throw up or place content there.
mhm,
And of course, you need to know that, you're at the Empire State Building. You need to know there's content there. But what Google is saying in maps for all these landmarks all over the world, we're going to tag them and put content there.
Contextual, yeah, contextual search, yeah, yeah,
So I think that visual search is finally here.
yeah.
And it's only going to, assuming that people use it, which of course we don't know yet. People are using the Google Maps feature. People are gradually finding out about it. It was not an instant hit, although I think it's pretty popular. I think this has the potential to be very impactful.
Yeah,
You
well,
go to
Meta,
Washington D.C. and everything is tagged.
right, and Meta is playing that game too with their Ray-Ban glasses, with the this beginnings of contextual kind of use case. It's still kind of gestating,
Yeah,
but that's the promise of this.
it's not quite there. It's limited to the picture technology that they have, but it does make that very useful in a way. You take a picture of the White House
Yeah,
and you send it to Meta AI, and now it starts talking to you about the White House.
yeah, yeah.
So it isn't an unusable system. It's just a little clunky. I'm not sure a lot of people are going to use it, but I think this is a great idea, and I have thought this is a great idea for years. And I hope that people use it because it's a whole nother sort of news feed.
Yeah, agreed.
If they really grow it, I think that's what it could be. So, other news this week, we have our guests, Matthew Celia and Robert Watts from Lightsail VR. I should have brought this up at the top of
Oh,
the
the head of the
show.
show? Yeah.
They were, I guess, the producers of Eli Roth's Faceless Lady, the stereo movie that is on the Oculus Quest.
Mhm.
And I think it may be one of the best pieces of free content on
Yes,
the Oculus Quest.
I agree. I've had a couple of discussions with them. I find them really interesting and fascinating. We have this kind of common thread of them understanding high resolution movie cameras and specialized lenses and specialized workflow. And it's yet another provability that the Quest 3 is a really, really capable device for its price point. For a few
Oh,
hundred
hell
dollars,
yeah.
it's really fantastic. And while it is not quite the perceived fidelity of the $4,000 Apple Vision Pro, it's still pretty damn good. You can watch video content on it, and it is a video experience. It's not a pixelated, like, gosh, I hope it gets there someday. You can really actually, see the characters, see the emotion, see the sets. And this is a fairly high budget effort with a, fairly notable movie maker that made this sort of series. I think there's 4 episodes. I've watched 3 of them. They're quite good and they're interesting. And lo and behold, here comes our friends from Lightsail to kind of talk to us about it. So
Oh, I was gonna, you gave me such a great lead in, because I wanted to bring up the Apple hype cycle.
mm,
Right now, the Apple Vision Pro is now descending into the trough of disillusionment. And it was so predictable. Apple hyped that mother so bad,
yeah.
and it really was for developers, and they made it seem like it was for consumers. They marketed it like it was an iPhone, and they raised those expectations, and of course it wasn't any of those things. And
Well, I'll tell
so,
you what. I'll tell you what is exciting to me about that whole hype and curve to the left is that I think the message is getting out that they need to accelerate on their Gen 2 product, that they learned from this massive wave of people talking about how amazing parts of it are and how ridiculously clunky and awful parts of it are for a $4,000 price
yeah,
tag, that the message, I do believe, including our little play at South by Southwest, and not just us, a worldwide sort of calling to please, Tim Cook, listen to what people are saying about this. They want this. You just got to work harder. You got to fix it. You got to
yeah,
make it better.
yeah.
And I just hope that's the end game here. I really do.
Well, I know one thing we're going to be doing with it is watching stereo movies. Matthew, welcome.
Hello, good to be here. Thanks for having me.
I was holding off for a minute because I wanted to get that riff in on Vision Pro, but I also was waiting for your partner, Robert. Is he going to join us?
You will not be joining us, unfortunately, this morning. It'll just be me from Lightsail.
Sounds good.
Fantastic. Well, welcome. We were talking about the show just a few minutes ago. So congrats on that, by the way.
Thank you.
I think I was telling Ted, I think it's one of the best free pieces of content on the Quest. So thank you, Mark Zuckerberg, for being a fan of entertainment and trying to help it grow because there hasn't been, I don't think, up till now, a serious professional production from a director of this stature, from a company experienced enough to pull it off.
Yeah, it's been a kind of a winter of narrative content. And I think a lot of people look at VR and they think of concerts, which are amazing. They think of sports, which is amazing. But everyone's very scared about, can you make a TV show?
Hmm.
And I
Is
think
the
they can.
audience big enough for the expense? That's why I say thank you, Mark Zuckerberg, and thank you, Meta, because they said, well, let's not worry about that. Let's make something great that no one has made, and people who own a Quest will have a better reason to use it every day.
Yeah, although I will say, I think we did a lot with very little on that production.
Yeah.
There was a lot of people coming together to just try something really exciting, and but I have to hand it to the team at Meta for just believing in the project. Like, they're great.
So Matt, let's back up a step and tell us about your company. Tell us a little bit about your origin story, you and your partner, and where you sit today, the kind of work you've been doing, and then we'll dive into Faceless Lady and talk about your aspirations with that and how it all sort of came together in a really interesting way.
Yeah, awesome. So my name is Matthew Celia. I'm the co-founder of a company called Lightsail VR. We came together. I think it was 2015 is when we started dabbling, and my business partner Robert came over to my house with a phone and a piece of cardboard and said, "I think this is going to be big one day. You should take a look at this." I think because he knew I was kind of like a technical person, and I was looking for the next thing to do. So I remember that piece. It was Walking New York. It was on the Verse app,
Yep.
that Chris Moak's company did. And I was like, this is super cool. I went to VRLA that August and I saw everything I could. But the thing for me that struck me at the time was a lot of folks were just like kind of putting the camera down and letting it play out, which I think there's still like value. This is still very cool. But it seemed to be like the technology was taking the narrative lead rather than the narrative taking the narrative lead.
Mm.
And as a filmmaker, as a creative person, I kind of said, I think I like to try putting real people on the screen and telling real stories and trying to crack narrative. And like that was the thing that I saw. And I asked Robert, hey, you want to buy some GoPros with me? And we bought 10 GoPros because at the time everyone was shooting at 6, and I was like, 10 is going to prioritize the horizon, and that's where all the action is. And so thought that was like the unique selling proposition for me. And we made a piece for Paranormal Activity with Paramount Pictures,
Yep.
and it got 10 million views, went viral, and people just started calling us and saying, I think that's really good. And we went to CES, and slowly, brick by brick, we started building the company with this whole mantra and ethos of like, we're story guys. And this is before I think the word story got kind of like way overused. But we really were. We were like, we really want to like do 3-act structures. This is at a time when a lot of people were telling me that you couldn't direct in VR. You had to let people like inhabit the narrative. And there are VR experiences that is absolutely true. And I've never said that that's not true. But my take and Lightsail's take on it has always been a very more entertainment focused narrative. Much more, let's take the audience on a journey. Let's surround them in a magical world. Let's escape them to something cool. So yeah, since that time, we've done work for Google, we've done work for Meta, we've done work for major studios like Amazon, all with this narrative bent. A lot of it's been documentary, of course. A lot of it's been concerts, of course. But when our collaboration with Crypt came about a couple of years ago with Eli Roth, that was really intriguing for us because we were like, this is narrative, this is storytelling, this is characters and conflict and emotional resonance, and those are the 3 building blocks of story for me. And that's kind of, I guess, maybe a good segue into the Faceless Lady.
Yeah. Well, before we seg into that, let's call out. You mentioned Chris Milk as one of the pioneers in this. Let's call out other early examples of folks that have been treading in these waters, right? Which is kind of interesting. And you're right. Google. There was a period of time where Google had an initiative where they were funding this stuff, And
Yeah.
I remember I think it was Justin Lin, who's also a pretty big director.
Yeah, Hero, I think, was the piece, and it was a huge thing. It was shot on like red and had all this
Yes.
visual effects work, and it had these dynamic camera moves. And the thing is, at the time, a lot of the stuff was being consumed on phones, and I feel
Hmm.
like more people probably saw that in Magic Window than in headset.
Yeah.
But it was cool, and like Pearl is still a
Yes.
piece that I reference all the time. In fact, I think some of the most incredible narrative VR pieces have all been animation.
Hmm.
Dear Angelica. I
Hmm.
mean, heck, just go onto the MetaQuest TV store now and check out all the Quill stuff. It's incredibly exciting.
Yeah, and our friends Felix and Paul had a sort of play in this and continue to play in that world. So there are
Phoebe,
people.
that was like really cool.
Yeah,
And Jaunt's Invisible was a
right.
project that I think had very high expectations.
Was that there was
Doug
a Doug
Liman
Layton thing, right?
directed.
Yeah, Doug Layton, also a very
Yeah.
big director. Right. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, big director, big name, big budget. That was a series. That
Hmm.
was narrative. That was
But
in
this
the
was 2017.
Yeah,
Yeah, it was, and it was shot on the Jaunt camera,
right.
and that must have been so hard,
Well,
The
you know what's
budget was just not even
interesting?
there.
What you bring up is that there was this interesting imbalance with the production technology, the quality of the cameras, the quality of the talent that was doing this work, and there were real funding buckets, but there was no adequate deliverable system. The
Right.
headsets themselves were just not good enough to realize the vision. And now with the Quest 3 and the Apple Vision Pro, we start to get to a little bit of a balance point where you can make high quality production and you can deliver it on a medium that makes sense and actually has enough visual acuity to achieve the objective. And then I think this is what leads us to Faceless. I think.
And but I also one more thing is that Google really did that I think was essential was the invention of 180 as a format.
Mm-hmm.
Which a lot of people, me, I came from the 360 world doing full spherical, but a lot of people were like 180. That's cheating. I don't see the point. That's like so easy. Like, why are we there? This sucks. Like, we all had those feelings right away, and then we realized, oh, well, narratively, it's a lot easier to direct your audience and tell a linear story. And two, you get all these technical benefits, like you can use better cameras with better sensors, with better color. You have twice as many pixels per degree on the screen, so everything is sharper. All your stereo looks a lot better. You have much less post costs. And suddenly we're putting more resources into the storytelling and less into just trying to make the darn thing work.
Yeah, well, and until OpenAI figures out how to put eyes in the back of our head, which I know that they will eventually,
Eventually.
we sense our visual mostly this way. Now we certainly turn our head and turn around, but 180 to 220 is probably the optimal viewing zone for most content, right? So
Yeah,
you
it
don't
really
need
is.
it behind you that much unless you need a jump scare moment or something where you really want to whip around in your chair and see it. And even then, if you just whip around to the side, you're going to achieve the objective, right? So
Exactly. So I think that was actually something that a lot of filmmakers were struggling with early before it was invented on how you even tell stories in that format.
mhm.
And when 180 came about, traditional filmmakers already having a hard time wrapping themselves around 180, like I can't even imagine with 360. It's a huge challenge. And I think that unlocked the doors for creative folks to really iterate faster.
So do you want to jump into this current project and how it got made? If you're able to even give us an inkling of roughly what the budget per episode was, I don't know if that's fully secretive or not.
I
Or
don't actually know the full scope of that. I just know that the cost per minute on the Faceless Lady was less than our previous collaborations, and I think, I just think that there was just a desire from the Crypt TV team to do a series and prove a model that you could do 6 episodes and go bigger and build an audience over time to tell bigger stories that grab people. And I think Faceless Lady, which by the way is, for those who don't know, it's a 6-part TV show on MetaQuest TV. It follows 3 couples that get invited to a castle to a competition to try to win it. Of course, the castle's haunted, and they play these games that end very gruesomely. And it's kind of it's a fun thriller horror kind of narrative.
yeah, yeah.
And
So I'm halfway through. I've watched 3 out of the 6.
Oh, I
Uh,
won't spoil it then. I think 4, 5, and 6 get really good. Like that's the thing about doing 6 episodes is that and 1, 2, and 3 are good, but 4, 5, and 6 I think are stellar because by episode 4 you form this emotional connection with the characters, and they start to really open up, and you start to know who they are, and suddenly you are just really hooked
So it's
because
all the things we do on a traditional screen to lead you to that point where now you've got to stay tuned in and
yeah,
keep watching, but you're doing it in a more advanced format with a more advanced screen. Although, what I would say is the production techniques are fairly traditional in terms of the way you are delivering the narrative and the dialogue and the characterization. So I don't think it's not like anybody would watch this that put on a VR headset and go, "This is something completely different than I've ever seen before." It feels like you're watching a really well produced TV series. Would you agree with
yeah,
that?
and I think and that was 100% the goal. Like that was the mission we went for. We wanted to prove TV and VR.
Hmm.
And the thing was is that directors have so many tools taken away from them. They don't have shallow depth of field. They don't really have montage in the sense that you can do. Moments had to be big. Like a lot of the notes that I was giving early on in the process, because I was co-producer and brought in right away. I was like, everything needs to be big. We can't have like games that involve like little tiny dice or like cards or anything that are small. It has to be like a knife throw or like just giant hourglasses filled with sand because these are the things that will read well in VR and play well in the narrative. So there was a lot of that adaptation. There was even like Ella as a main character. One of the earliest notes was in the first draft of the script, she was written to be very introverted
Mm,
and very like kind of quiet and moody, which is vogue right now for a lot of young actresses, right? And I was
right.
like, that's great.
Doesn't work.
This does not work in VR.
Not work in VR.
It
Right.
does
Right.
not because like you don't have that close-up shot that like gets into their soul that you can see that moodiness. She has to be a fire engine. She has to be a force. And so they heard that, rewrote it. I think her character is a lot stronger because of it.
Yeah, if you go back a little bit in time historically to cinema, it sounds like your comments would be very much the same as someone that was trying to figure out Cinemascope at the time, right? Like,
Yeah,
okay, it's this big widescreen format that's going to air in these big auditoriums, and everything's got to be big. And like
right.
now, here comes the Bridge over the River Kwai, right? Or Doctor Zhivago. It's got to be big. It's got to be epic. And
Exactly. And John and I met the director, John William Ross. He came by the studio at Lightsail. I put him in a headset. We had the camera. We shot a bunch of tests with different framings, different distances, different angles, movement, not movement, lateral. We did everything. I think we made Darren so nauseous he had to lie down for 40 minutes because we were showing what not to do, what to do.
right,
And
right,
but
right.
one of the things is John is a true cinemaphile, just like a lot of the Crypt TV folks. I mean, Eli Roth, true cinemaphile, like just has an encyclopedic knowledge of this stuff. And he came back and he said, "You know what? I just saw Citizen Kane this weekend."
There you go. Perfect example.
And we looked at it, we went through the shots, and there's a movie that like the camera moves are really deliberate. There's very deep depth of field. The characters come in and out of the frame, and the way Orson Welles approached that is actually a textbook example, I think, of how VR works.
Charlie, I think you're going to need to send this episode to all the students, not in your class at Chapman Cinema
Yeah,
School at Chapman.
exactly.
They're going to want this episode.
Exactly. I remember when I was in film school studying the Cinemascope directors and techniques, because a lot of the Western guys were attracted to it because they worked in these epic scenes, outdoor scenes. But what they would end up doing, because it was such hard work to address a world that big, is that The Searchers is a great example of this. John Ford framed up so many over the shoulder shots so that the character would be in a normal aspect ratio. And then he would open it up for the big outdoor scenes. And it was a very, very cleverly staged film. And the goal was to use the medium for what it was good at, but then try to limit the damage and distraction of what it was bad at. So, and of course, CinemaScope, for those interested in a little bit of cinema history, since we're there, CinemaScope was invented in response to television,
Mhm.
right? That movies have to be so big because people are attracted to this thing that is small.
Mhm.
So for about 10 or 15 years, the studios would have on their slate of films some projects that would be ultra widescreen, And as you said, those are likely to be the Lawrence of Arabia type projects where you're going to have a lot of, scenes with tremendous panoramas and action going on, right? That you'd want to watch, like two armies coming together.
Yeah, exactly. And one of the most important things I think that we do at Lightsail is we've invented, I mean, I'm sure other people are doing this, but we have a live preview kit. And so on set, everyone's in a headset. We have like 10 headsets all wirelessly, seeing what we're seeing in real time. And John's in the headset and he is directing actors. And he's like, stand here, take a step forward. And he's composing the scene for stereo. He's composing it for the 180 world in every setup. And that makes such a difference in a piece like this.
Sure.
Are there any feels built for it?
Are there any behind the scenes footage or anything on YouTube that shows that process for people that are interested in this to see what it looks like when a crew is wearing headsets on set?
Not on the Faceless Lady, but there is a 360 video of Trick VR Treat that we did with Eli Roth about a year and a half or so ago. We did a little BTS video where he does mention we're all in headset watching stuff, and same thing, like he was directing Vanessa Hudgens, like, here, stand over here, and we didn't shoot that show in stereoscopic, but he still used the canvas so effectively to place all the actors and build these ensemble moments and build all these scares. And I think
if you Google Trick VR Treat behind the scenes, you could find something to see where it's
you should be able to find something there. And I think it's still up on MetaQuest TV. If you're looking for that. It's like 17 minutes. It's very fun.
The other thing I wanted to...
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Ted.
The other thing I wanted to talk about a little bit is the sets, the scenery, the location that you were able to find, which is really it is one of the characters in the series.
Really is.
I was just like, how did you guys find this place? Because clearly a lot of it is shot on location, right? You're not
the whole thing is shot on location. And I went out to Ireland twice with the producers to scout locations, and we saw, I don't know, 10, 15 castles, and we shot in none of them. We found this castle at the very last minute. And what's unique about this castle is it's not a real castle. It's a castle built by a land baron in the 1800s as like a romantic version of what a castle is to throw parties at. Like this, so most castles are like small and dingy and like they're forts. They're designed to like keep people out. This was an opulent like mansion house.
Yeah, it kind of looks like if a castle was an Airbnb, that's what it would be.
And they had like these 3D ceilings that were so incredible. It almost seemed like it was built for VR.
Right. That's what I was watching, and I was like, "How did you guys find this place? It's unbelievable."
Yeah, middle of Ireland in a small town called Tullamore, and it was abandoned basically, and the crew had to come in. We cleaned it up. We made it safe. We scraped out all the bird stuff in it, and we were there for about 5 weeks.
That's wow. That's a great backstory in and of itself. That you had to
really is.
Clean up this old abandoned castle, and when you see it, for those that haven't watched it, when you watch it, it shows off great. And there's a garden maze, and there's all this stuff on the inside and the outside, and you're just like, wow, this place is crazy good.
It's a wild place. It was fun.
That's great.
Matthew, what is the future of stereoscopic filmmaking?
It's a great question. I think it's great. Like, stereoscopic filmmaking feels made for VR headsets because you already have the glasses on your face. And I think that there are some challenges with 180 stereoscopic that I'm looking forward to people figuring out good solutions, like either using AI to get things into 3D or, how we can get that cost per minute a little bit lower. But I like it, and I like spatial videos too. Like I know when I popped on here, you were talking about the Vision Pro and that stuff, and I shoot spatial videos on my iPhone all the time, and I think that that's really cool and exciting. And I was never much of a fan of 3D like in my living room because I have to like put on glasses and everyone's got to wear that stuff. But in a headset, it just feels so native to me, you know?
Do you think that there'll be a time, and maybe this is something you guys are already working on, where you actually use the Apple Vision Pro itself as the acquisition device to make a spatial narrative, a spatial story, like you did with Faceless Lady, but actually using the where the camera, because some of the early tests I've done, it is remarkable. Like these little moments, we friends of ours got a puppy, a new puppy, and
Yeah.
just putting on the headset and getting really close to it and then watching that material afterwards, it's sort of mind-boggling. Like I feel like that's an actual memory that I captured. So I'm sure very soon there'll be these are my baby's first steps captured in spatial, and I just basically put the headset on, stood 3 feet away from them, and filmed it. Do you think
I tell you, I mean, these are the Meta Ray-Bans.
Mm-hmm.
I love these. This is my
I do
secret
too.
favorite piece of
I
tech.
love them.
Just talking about it on the show? Yeah.
I was in Costa Rica with my kids for a vacation, and I shot all my video on these.
Oh, wow.
It was cool because I didn't need to like put a phone and swipe and like get the camera out. Like it feels like that disconnects me from them. This was just like boop, or like you said, hey Matt,
you are the first person since Andrew Bosworth I have heard say that.
That's the best sales pitch for the Ray-Bans.
Unbelievable sales pitch.
I mean, but that's amazing. And now, like with AI, like I'm there in Costa Rica. I don't speak or read Spanish, and I'm just like, hey, tell me what the sign says.
Yeah.
Translates it.
Yeah.
This is an underrated piece of tech.
Oh, I don't think it's underrated anymore. I think everybody I think that Meta's big challenge now is to put a display in it in a way that makes sense for what it is. Maybe it'll have to do with photography at first. I don't, it's not going to be that good for consuming media, but it could be good for, as you're pointing out here, creating and collecting media.
Yeah, I told the Crypt TV guys, I was like, you should do a horror film shot on these.
Yeah.
What's the next Blair Witch?
Oh yeah, that's a great idea. What a home run of an idea that is.
Yeah. Do you want to, speaking of cameras, do you want to talk about the camera tech that you used and the specialized lens that you used to shoot this series and other stuff? Because
sure, we did some really cool, unique things on the Faceless Lady. So we shot on a red V Raptor, and then we paired it with the Canon dual fisheye lens. And Canon's like, why'd you do that?
This is a single lens that mounts like a normal lens, except it's got 2 eyes.
It's got 2 fish eyes, and it uses a prism inside. So what it displays on the 8K sensor is 2 circular images. So you get about 4K per eye, but it solves a lot of technical problems with stereoscopic filmmaking. Your camera, it's one camera, it's one sensor, it's one readout. So there's no like line level sync issues, no color drift issues. That makes things easier, and it's smaller. Like it's a pretty tiny body when you think about it.
And it's normalized production. You're basically just shooting with a single camera. So the workflow on set becomes much simpler. Everything just becomes more logical. It's like, oh, this is how we just shoot normal movies, except now we've got this amazing high-res dual-eye capture on a single device. It's incredible.
Exactly. And it's really sharp. Like it looks
really, you get 4K on each eye. Yeah.
We had the camera. So Brandon Nugama was the DP on this, and he's shot tons of TV, and he is a pro through and through. And it was really great because this was his first VR production and his first stereoscopic production. So we worked really closely together on how do you light for VR and how do you motivate these lighting sources where you need lots of light, because this is shot at 60 frames a second. You're at a 5.6 shutter. The red is maybe 800 ISO on a good day, but it's still pretty noisy there. So you don't want to push that too much. You need a lot of light. We had these giant lights outside the windows of that main room, just blasting it all the time. So you need a lot of light, but you're making a horror show where you want it all to be dark.
That's the beauty of color grading, is you can dial it all down.
But he lit the show, and it looks so good. It looks really, really professionally done, and just very high production value.
Yeah, the lighting is for the most part, at least the 3 episodes I've seen, is very naturalistic looking. It feels like it's the lighting that would be in that part of Ireland where the castle is. It's mostly very soft. It doesn't feel very hard cut, like it doesn't feel lit to me.
Yeah.
It feels like you just went and that was the light in the room and you just shot, even though I know that's not.
There was a lot of lights, and everything was on a dimmer board and controlled by a whole team. Like it was big. The thing that I thought that was really interesting about what he did though too is he put the camera on a Ronin 2 the whole show.
Hmm.
So
that's a gimbal.
Really,
flying it on a
which
gimbal.
is a gimbal. It's like to stabilize it. And initially, I was like, "You can't. Why are we doing this? Like, why would you have a remote head? We don't ever pan in VR. You know, you never want to do any of that. You want to keep it locked in." But John and Brennan, they had these vision of moving the camera, and we worked on it a lot about like what is comfortable for people when you move the camera. And we found that like if I'm going to follow a character laterally through a room, if I add a little bit of pan to keep her locked dead center, this really improves the comfort of the audience.
Yeah,
you don't get as motion sick. Dramatically better.
Yeah, so as a watcher, I would tell you that out of 3 episodes, let's say I probably saw 30, 35 scenes. Nothing made me motion sick except a little tiny bit when they're running through the maze. That was the only time.
And you know what? That was intentional. Like that was absolutely intentional, because when we had a conversation about it, we said, "Hey, this is going to be uncomfortable." And John was like, "You know what? If you're being chased by ghosts in the maze, I want you to be uncomfortable."
How would you feel? Yeah, that's good.
And I was like, "All right, this feels good."
What happens? Yeah. Fascinating. It's great.
Matthew, it was fantastic having you on the show. This has been a great conversation. I recommend everybody go and put on their MetaQuest headset and head over to Meta TV, where they can find the Faceless Lady. Do you have other Lightsail work there in the Apple Meta TV channel?
We do a lot of stuff. I think the thing that's very opposite and different is the Live at Red Rocks series that's out right now. Some great concerts done in probably my favorite music venue in the United States.
Yep, I've seen a couple.
It's legendary.
It's legendary. There's some great EDM artists there. Some great country artists. To check that out, I think that stuff is really good as well.
Are you able to talk about what's next for you guys?
So I can't talk too much about it, but I will say that there's more concerts and music happening. There's a couple of live events that we're doing, and I hope we get to do some more narrative series. I think it would be a real shame if what we accomplished with the Faceless Lady, if that were just like ending. I think that'd be a real shame. I think it's the start of, hey, there's a format here, and I've heard from lots of people. They're like, "Where's season 2? Like, where can I get more of this?"
Great.
And I hope that we can continue to deliver that, because it's really exciting for me.
Well, I think next time you do a big concert, invite Charlie and I, and we'll do our show live commentary from the.
That'd be great. Love that.
Yeah. If you're shooting here in LA, we could even do a behind the scenes.
Yeah, absolutely could.
I would love to write about this. It's so fascinating.
Cool. Well, thanks so much both for having me.
Thanks, Matthew.
Big fan of you both, and it was an honor to be on the show.
Have a great weekend, everyone.
Take care. Bye-bye.